The wind rolled hot across the plains, bending tall grass beneath the midday sun as dust lifted off the trail and clung to every boot and saddle in sight. Hannah Cole squinted beneath the brim of her hat, a folded deed in one hand and a skeptical eye fixed on the land ahead. It didn't look like much. A leaning wooden arch with the faded name Clear Hollow Ranch etched into its beam, a broken fence, a rusted gate. Beyond it, miles of empty fields, a collapsing barn, and a two-story house that might have stood proud once, but now leaned like it had secrets to hide. She pulled her satchel tighter on her shoulder and stepped forward. The deed signed and sealed read just 3 lines. 1-acre parcel, Clear Hollow District. Price paid, $1. Transfer granted by Bureau Order Number 1872B, no conditions. But Hannah knew better. There were always conditions. She hadn't planned to buy land. She'd been working as a record clerk in Fort Dawson, sorting land deeds and probate filings. That's when she found it. An odd entry in the archives. A ranch sold for $1, sitting untouched for 20 years. Transferred under a long-defunct government program no one wanted to talk about. And it was still available. Curiosity won. Or maybe it was the restlessness. The feeling that her life, tidy, lonely, predictable, had never really been hers. So she bought it. The front porch groaned under her weight as she stepped onto it. The door creaked open without resistance. Inside, dust motes hung like spirits in the sunlight. A kitchen long abandoned, a staircase with half its railing missing, but beneath the decay was something she couldn't quite name. Something watching. She took a cautious step inside. Floorboards whispered. In the corner of the living room sat a chair facing the window. It rocked slightly. Hannah froze. But it was empty. Just wind, right? She exhaled slowly, laughed once under her breath, and shook her head. Already letting the place get to me. She set down her bag and walked into the kitchen. Opened a drawer. Empty, except for a single matchbox and a folded map with worn edges. Unfolding it revealed nothing ordinary. A topographic outline of the surrounding hills. But someone had drawn red ink across it, arrows, marks, and a single phrase. Do not open what was sealed. Outside, a dust cloud stirred on the trail. A horse approached, slow and steady. Its rider, tall, silent, broad-shouldered, watched the ranch from a distance before dismounting. Hannah didn't know it yet, but she was no longer alone, and Clear Hollow Ranch was about to remember why it had been abandoned in the first place. Hannah stood in the doorway of the house, her boots still powdered with dust from inside, one hand resting on the edge of the frame as she watched the stranger ride in from the west. He didn't gallop, didn't wave. He simply dismounted at the edge of the fence line, his tall frame unfolding from the saddle like he had all the time in the world. Sunlight struck the worn leather of his coat and the crease in his hat, casting a shadow across a face Hannah couldn't quite make out. But even from a distance she could feel it, the tension that followed him like a second skin. He tied the reins loosely to the post, glanced at the faded Clear Hollow sign overhead, then turned toward her. Their eyes met, and he nodded once. Hannah stepped off the porch, wiping her hands on her jeans. "If you're looking for work, I don't pay much," she called. The man's voice was calm, low, Western-born. "Ain't here for work." "Then you're lost." "No," he said. "I was told someone bought this place." Hannah frowned. "You were told?" "Man at the post office said someone finally claimed the hollow." "Couldn't believe it." He paused. "Didn't think anyone'd be that foolish or that brave." "I suppose I'm a little of both," she replied. He stepped closer. "Name's Sawyer Holt." Hannah raised a brow. "That's not exactly reassuring." "No reason it should be. But I used to know this place. Rode through here as a boy, before it was sold off." Hannah hesitated. "You mean before it was buried?" Sawyer's gaze sharpened. "You know? I know it's strange. I know the land sat untouched for decades. I know the government sealed it off with barely a line of explanation." He nodded once. "Then you don't know the half of it." Hannah crossed her arms. "So tell me." Sawyer stepped beside her and looked out across the fields. "They say Clear Hollow was built over something. Not gold, not oil, something older." "Older?" "Older than the law, older than the fence line." He turned to her. "And if you start digging where that map tells you not to, you won't be able to bury what comes up." That night, after Sawyer had gone, refusing coffee but promising to return, Hannah sat at the kitchen table staring at the map. The red marks, the ridges, the phrase, "Do not open what was sealed." She held it up to the lantern light, squinting at the paper's edge. There, faintly like someone had tried to erase it, was another line of text in smaller ink. February 3rd, 1871. Below the third well, the vault is still intact. Vault. She ran her fingers across the paper. Somewhere on her land, this land she'd bought for $1, was a place the government had tried to erase. And now someone else had noticed she was here. Outside, a shadow moved at the edge of the field, watching, waiting. The morning brought no answers, only wind. It swept across the dry grass in ghostly swirls, rattling loose shutters on the barn and tugging at Hannah's coat as she followed the path behind the house. The land stretched quiet and wide, dotted with crumbling fence posts and dry wells, sealed with wooden lids long since gray from sun and time. She counted them. 1, 2, then finally the third well. It sat half sunken in the ground, its stones chipped, the old crank arm rusted through. The wooden lid looked solid, but when she tapped it with her boot, it gave a hollow thump, the same as the floorboards beneath the chair in the house. Hannah knelt and ran her hand across the surface. Faint grooves carved along the edge. A symbol, maybe? No, just age. Her fingers brushed a rusted nail that seemed oddly loose. She paused, then pulled. Click! The lid shifted. She exhaled slowly and leaned in, pushing the cover aside. Inside was a ladder, and below that, darkness. The well wasn't filled with water. It was dry, deep, and clearly man-made far beyond the point it should have been. A lining of cut stone spiraled downward, perfectly square. Someone had built something down there, and sealed it, not hundreds of years ago. Recently, she didn't climb down. Not yet. Instead, she marked the location on the map again and returned to the house. That evening, just as the sun dipped low enough to bleed across the wheat fields, Sawyer returned. This time he tied his horse and came up to the porch without hesitation. "Found it, didn't you?" he asked before she even spoke. Hannah nodded. "The third well." Sawyer removed his hat. "Then you're already deeper in than most ever got. You knew about the vault?" "I knew it was real. Never saw it with my own eyes. The folks who didn't talk about it for long." Hannah folded her arms. "I don't scare easy." Sawyer didn't smile. "That's good. Because whatever's down there, it isn't about treasure. It's about secrets. The kind men die for. The kind governments pretend never existed." She held his gaze. "And you came back to warn me again?" "I came back," he said slowly, "because I think I've been running from this place long enough." That night, Hannah lit the stove and cooked a simple meal. Eggs, cornbread, beans. Sawyer sat at the table, hat on the chair beside him, eyes scanning the map she'd unfolded across the wood. "Whoever drew this," he said, pointing to the red markings, "wasn't warning the public. They were leaving a message for someone who already knew what was buried." She leaned in. "Then maybe it's time someone unburied it." He looked at her, voice low. "Then we go together." But neither of them noticed the second horse on the ridge, nor the man watching from the shadows, field glasses in one hand, a telegram in his coat pocket. He rode off under moonlight. Fast. The kind of ride that only came after seeing something you weren't supposed to see. 2 days passed before Hannah and Sawyer descended. They prepared with caution. Lanterns, rope, gloves, revolvers, neither of them hoped to use. The latter groaned under Sawyer's weight, but held firm. Hannah followed closely behind, boots scraping on stone as the shaft swallowed the daylight above them. At the bottom, a passage stretched outward. Perfectly cut walls, straight angles. The stone was smooth, unlike anything built by farmers or ranch hands. This wasn't a cellar. This was engineered. Sawyer ran his hand along the surface. "Too clean," he muttered. "No pickaxe marks. This wasn't dug, it was carved." "By who and why?" Their footsteps echoed as they moved deeper. Dust hung thick in the air, disturbed for the first time in decades. Hannah held the lantern high, revealing shapes along the walls, indentations, grooves. Then she saw it. Symbols, faintly carved, almost worn away. Circles within circles. Lines crossing an unnatural symmetry, all branching from a central eye-like figure. Not letters, not any language she'd seen, but they felt ancient, and worse, familiar, like something she'd forgotten. She reached out, her fingers brushed the stone. The ground trembled. Just once. Just enough. Sawyer's hand went to his holster, but Hannah only stared ahead. A door loomed at the end of the corridor. Metal. Reinforced. Not rusted. Clean. Too clean. "Vault?" she asked. Sawyer nodded grimly. "Or a tomb." He stepped forward, pushing gently. It didn't budge. But beside the frame, embedded in the wall, was a small console. Metal plates, wiring, technology. Old, but far more advanced than anything belonging on a forgotten ranch. Hannah blinked. "This isn't government." "No," Sawyer said slowly, "but the government wanted it buried." She glanced at him. "So what is it?" Before he could answer, a faint hum rose from the door. A low, rhythmic pulse. Then a voice, garbled, mechanical, female, spoke softly through unseen speakers. "Access denied. Protocol 7 containment status incomplete." Hannah stepped back, chills crawling up her spine. Sawyer swore under his breath. It's still online. Back above, the wind picked up again. The sky turned gray. And not far beyond the ridge, a black automobile rolled down a dirt trail, tires kicking up dust as it crept toward Clear Hollow Ranch. 2 men sat inside. Government suits, sunglasses, cold expressions. One of them checked the loaded rifle beside his leg. They opened it, he said. The other nodded. Then we close it. Night fell across Clear Hollow Ranch like a heavy curtain. But beneath the surface, deep in the passage that led to the sealed vault, there was no night and no day. Just flickering lantern light and that ever-present hum behind the strange metal door. Hannah paced the narrow corridor. Sawyer stood with arms folded, studying the carvings again. This isn't military, he said. Not by origin, but someone wanted it locked away. Someone with power, Hannah replied, and fear. She crouched by the console again. The buttons were faded but worn, used. At some point, someone had been down here regularly, but not recently. A fine layer of dust coated everything but the console face. Sawyer knelt beside her, pointing to a groove in the wall nearby. That, he said, is blood. She squinted. A dark smear, dried and brittle, dragged across the base of the wall. Heading away from the vault, Sawyer stood and drew his revolver. This place isn't just abandoned, it was evacuated. Back above, the 2 black-suited agents had arrived. They parked beneath the dying cottonwoods near the edge of the ranch and stepped out, coats brushing the grass. No badges. No greetings. The taller one knocked twice on the door. No answer. Then once more, louder. Inside the house, Hannah's map still sat on the table. Next to it, the matchbox, the lantern, the photograph she'd found in a drawer. A group of men in front of the house, dated 1871. All of them smiling. All of them wearing armbands with the same symbol Hannah had seen in the vault. Underground, the hum suddenly stopped. Hannah froze. So did Sawyer. Then, click. The console beeped softly. 1 green light blinked to life. Protocol updated, access temporarily granted. The door hissed. Metal scraped against stone. Slowly, it began to open. Sawyer raised his weapon. You sure you want to keep going? Hannah held the lantern forward. I didn't come this far to walk away. Beyond the door was a chamber. Circular, tall, the ceiling lost in shadow. In the center stood a column of glass. Frosted, glowing faintly from within. Around it, machines hummed. Not running, just alive. And at the base of the column, a handprint, small, like a child's, burned into the stone. Sawyer whispered, "What the hell is this?" But Hannah couldn't answer, because the moment she stepped inside the room, something woke up. The machines pulsed with life, and behind them something moved, just barely. Back at the ranch house, the agents forced the door. They found the photo, the map, and the red markings. This is worse than we thought, one muttered. The other looked toward the barn. Get to the well, now. Underground, the vault lights flared to life. And from the glass column, a sound emerged. A whisper. Low, garbling, calling her name. The chamber pulsed like a living heart. Hannah's breath caught in her throat as the whisper rose again, not echoing through the space, but inside her head. It was her name, unmistakable, drawn out like wind through broken glass. Hannah. She stepped closer to the glowing column, lantern trembling in her grip. Inside the frosted glass was no machinery, no gears or pipes, just shapes, moving, slow, fluid, shifting like mist in water. Sawyer grabbed her arm. Don't get closer. But she was already there. The handprint on the stone floor was warm beneath her boots, though no heat should have radiated from below. What is this place? She whispered. Sawyer didn't answer. His focus had turned to the wall across the chamber where another carving loomed, a symbol larger than the rest. The same one from the photo upstairs, the one from the armbands. And now, etched into stone 10 feet tall, an eye inside a circle with jagged rays erupting outward. Sawyer muttered, I've seen that before, on the edge of Fort Ethan back when the military abandoned the site. It was on the sealed crates they weren't allowed to open. The symbol began to glow faintly. A low hum returned, and the glass column opened. A seam split down the center, hissing softly. Mist spilled out onto the floor in waves, and from within stepped a woman, or what looked like one. She was barefoot, draped in a tattered white shift, long silver hair falling in tangled strands down her back. Her skin was smooth but pale as porcelain, and her eyes weren't human. Black, reflective, infinite. She looked directly at Hannah and smiled. You came back, the woman said, voice crystalline and echoing. Hannah shook her head slowly. I've never been here before. The woman tilted her head. Not in this life. Sawyer raised his revolver. But the woman didn't flinch. Instead, she stepped forward, and as her bare feet touched the carved floor, every lantern flickered violently. The machines behind her lit up in sequence, forming a circle of light around the chamber's edges. "You open the door," she said to Hannah. "That means the seal is broken, and they'll come again, just like before." "Who are you?" Hannah asked, trembling. The woman looked at her, almost sad. "I am what they feared, what they buried, what you will now protect." Outside, the agents had reached the well. The taller one peered down with a flashlight. "Fresh rope. They're in." The other removed a strange metal device from his coat, part weapon, part detonator. "No time to extract," he said. "Initiate protocol blackout. Collapse the shaft." He flipped the safety and pressed the button. Underground, a roar tore through the passage. The earth trembled violently. Stones cracked. Dirt rained from the ceiling. Sawyer grabbed Hannah, pulling her toward the exit, but it was too late. The shaft behind them collapsed in an explosion of dust and noise, sealing them inside the chamber. "Trapped." Hannah coughed, reaching for Sawyer. The woman in white did not move. "It begins again," she whispered. "The silence before the war." Above, the agents turned away, satisfied. The ranch now sat quiet once more. Buried, but not dead. The dust hadn't yet settled when Sawyer pushed debris away from the collapsed passage. He tried not to curse, but his jaw was tight, his knuckles white. "We're sealed in," he growled. "Whoever was up there, they wanted us dead." Hannah didn't answer. She stood frozen, eyes locked on the woman in white, this being who had emerged from the mist and claimed to know her. Not just know of her, but know her. "Who are you really?" Hannah asked again, her voice steadier this time. The woman moved slowly, her bare feet silent against the stone floor. "Names fade," she said, almost wistful. "But once, long ago, they called me Inariel. I was never meant to wake, not like this." Sawyer stepped between them, protective. "What do you mean, not like this?" Inariel tilted her head toward the shattered passage. "They came centuries ago. Your kind. Found the rift. Tried to control it. When they failed, they buried it. Me. All of it." "The government?" Hannah asked. "Before that," Inariel said softly. "Before your borders had names. Men in uniforms always come when they smell power. They thought I was a key. I was only a warning." Sawyer lowered his weapon just slightly. "What's the rift?" She looked at him, no malice, only truth. "It is the space between worlds. It breathes beneath this land asleep. I was its last guardian until now." Far above, under the cloak of night, a convoy of black trucks rolled into the hills beyond Clear Hollow. No headlights, no markings, silent engines. Inside one truck, a man in a dark green coat stared at a blinking screen displaying seismic pulses. His voice was low. "Chamber still active. Signal is stronger. Something woke up." His assistant leaned in. "Do we neutralize?" The man didn't look away from the screen. "Not yet. We contain. There's still time before it spreads." Back in the chamber, Sawyer touched Hannah's shoulder gently. "We need to find a way out. That blast buried the shaft, but maybe there's another way. You saw the map." She nodded. "I marked another tunnel," she murmured. "West of the house. It was half collapsed, but..." Inariel's eyes flashed faintly. "There is a second path. It leads deeper, through the vaults beneath the rift. If you walk it, you will not be the same when you return." Sawyer looked at Hannah. "I didn't come out here to be the same," she said. He gave her the smallest smile. "Then we walk." The three of them stepped into the shadows beyond the chamber, guided by nothing but lantern light and trust. The air grew colder, the walls darker, the symbols more jagged and wild. And as they moved, Hannah felt it again, a heartbeat in the stone. Not her own, not Sawyer's. Something ancient, awake, watching, waiting. And high above, a single crow landed on the roof of the ranch house. Its eyes were white, and it whispered a sound no bird should ever make. The passage narrowed, walls pressed in, carved from stone that shimmered oddly in the lantern's glow, veins of metal running through it like arteries. The air was thick, damp, carrying a faint metallic tang that clung to their tongues. Inariel walked ahead, barefoot, silent. Sawyer muttered, "You'd think something that old would make noise." Hannah was too focused to joke. Every step down felt like walking back in time. After what felt like hours, the tunnel widened into a chamber, round, lower ceiling, scattered with debris and collapsed beams. There were wooden crates, long rotted, and what looked like military cots lined up against one wall. Sawyer held up the lantern. "Someone lived down here." "No," Inariel corrected. "Someone was kept here." On the far wall they saw shackles, rusted, bolted into stone. Some still held scraps of torn sleeves, bones within them. Hannah turned away, sickened. Sawyer examined the remains, thin, childlike. "Test subjects," he said grimly. "Or prisoners." On the floor, symbols had been etched in a circular pattern, matching the strange eye sigil from above. Blood had dried into its grooves long ago. Inariel didn't step inside the circle. "They tried to contain the rift," she said softly. "But you cannot trap what was never meant for this world." Suddenly the ground shuddered. Stone dust rained from the ceiling. The lantern flickered, and from the tunnel behind them a low, dragging sound echoed. Metal against stone, a scraping that carried no footsteps. Hannah spun. "We're not alone." Sawyer pulled his revolver, backing toward her. From the shadows emerged a figure. Slow, twitching, its form flickering in and out like a broken reflection. Dressed in what had once been a government uniform, its eyes glowed faintly blue, leaking light from cracked sockets. Its mouth moved, but the voice came from behind them. "Turn back!" Sawyer fired. The bullet passed through. The thing didn't react. It simply twitched again, raised an arm, and pointed at Hannah. "You opened it," it whispered. "You invited it." Inariel stepped forward and raised her hand. From her palm, a warm, golden glow burst outward. Not fire, not light. Something older. The creature recoiled, shrieked like ripping cloth, and dissolved into air. Silence returned. Hannah dropped to her knees. "What was that?" "A remnant," Inariel said. "Caught between here and where it shouldn't be." Sawyer helped Hannah up, but his face had gone pale. "How many more are there?" Inariel didn't answer. Hours later they reached a split in the path. To the left, a narrower tunnel, caved in but maybe passable. To the right, an open archway, beyond which shimmered faint blue mist. The mist pulsed. The heartbeat in the stone grew louder. Inariel nodded toward the right. "That way leads to truth." Sawyer shook his head. "Truth don't matter if we die finding it." But Hannah was already walking. Outside, the agents had gathered at the rim of the valley. Trucks idled, antennas up, radar dishes humming. The man in the green coat stared down the ravine through binoculars. "She's in the rift's heart now," he said. "Then we're out of time," his assistant replied. The man raised a red flare. "Signal containment protocol, call in the fire." Far above the valley, jets roared in the clouds. Below, Hannah stepped through the mist and saw a place no map had ever held. A landscape, twisted, shifting, skyless, timeless. Not of this world. Not of any world. "Welcome," Inariel whispered, standing beside her, "to the rift." The air inside the rift wasn't air at all. It hummed, thrummed, listened. With every breath, Hannah felt it pressing against her skin like liquid silk. The laws of physics bent gently here, like trees in wind. The tunnel behind them was gone. No wall, no arch. Just skyless vastness, bathed in pale light from no clear source. "Where are we?" Sawyer asked, his voice subdued, as if loudness might anger whatever lived in this place. Inariel didn't turn. "This is what lies beneath your history, beneath your maps, beneath your wars." Ahead, formations rose from the landscape, not buildings, but memories made solid. One resembled a farmhouse, yet its walls pulsed like muscle. Another floated, anchored by nothing, windows shaped like eyes. Sawyer muttered, "This is a dream." "No," Inariel said. "Dreams come from here." Hannah stepped toward the nearest formation. As she neared, it changed. The shape twisted into her childhood home. Porch, swing, the white door her mother used to paint every spring. But as she reached out, "You left me." The voice stopped her cold. She turned and saw her husband, alive, whole, and holding their daughter. Except he wasn't, because her husband had died, and her daughter had been born after. This was not them. She backed away. "You're not real." The apparition smiled. "But you wanted us to be." Sawyer shouted, "Don't look at it, Hannah. That's how it pulls you in." He fired a round into the mirage, and it shattered like smoke. Hannah gasped. Inariel pulled her back. "This place tests your mind. It shows you what you miss, what you fear." "What I fear," Hannah whispered, "is losing control." As they pushed forward, the rift pulsed again, and the sky split. A rift within the rift opened above them, revealing visions tumbling past like rain. Old cavalry raids rewritten by light. Agents in black dragging bodies from underground shelters. A boy in a cage whispering numbers to a glowing orb. Sawyer looked up. "These are real memories." "They're leaks," Inariel said. "Truths buried too deep for your world. But the rift remembers everything." Suddenly the ground shook. Cracks spidered outward beneath their feet. From the deepest chasm, a voice rose. Not Inariel's, not human. "The seal is broken. The bloodline has returned." Sawyer grabbed Hannah's arm. "We have to go, now." But Inariel stood her ground, face calm. "If we leave now, it follows her. It escapes through her." "Through me?" Hannah said, voice trembling. Inariel nodded slowly. "You were born near this land. Your family once tended it. They were chosen. Long before you were born." Hannah's throat tightened. Chosen for what? To keep it sealed, but they failed. Suddenly a black wind roared through the rift. The light dimmed. The shapes twisted into monstrous versions of themselves. Sawyer fired into the wind. Useless. Hannah screamed as tendrils of darkness wrapped around her legs, pulling her downward. Inariel placed both hands on Hannah's shoulders and sang. A low, ancient melody, neither in English nor in any living tongue. The darkness screeched and withdrew. The wind died. The rift quieted. Inariel collapsed. Hannah knelt beside her. What did you do? The woman's eyes fluttered. I bought you time, but now you must decide. Do you run, or do you stay and end this? Sawyer knelt beside her. We're with you, whatever this means. The ground began to glow, and from the depths something rose. A figure not man, not beast, formed of fire and shadow, wearing the symbols of a forgotten war. And it spoke in a voice that cracked reality. She is the key, and I am the door. The rift shuddered as the figure emerged. Towering, radiant with a light that burned backwards, pulling warmth from the air rather than giving it. It had no face, only a smooth surface where a human shape might have had eyes. Its voice echoed not in sound, but inside their bones. She carries the mark. She holds the bloodline. Through her, I step again into the waking world. Hannah stood frozen. Sawyer raised his revolver again, hands trembling. You're not going anywhere near her. The being looked at him, if looking was even the right word. And Sawyer staggered back, breath stolen from his lungs as if the weight of centuries had just collapsed onto his chest. Inariel, still barely conscious, whispered, You can't fight it with weapons. You fight it with will. Hannah stepped forward. The symbol on her wrist, the one she'd always thought was a birthmark, now pulsed with the same eerie light the being radiated. I don't know what I'm doing, she said, but I know you're not coming through me. The figure extended one long arm toward her. The ground cracked beneath her boots. You were left behind, forgotten, but you are the last gate. Open. Sawyer stumbled to her side, gripping her hand tightly. Then she's not opening alone. In that moment, the rift responded. It roared. The skyless void split into jagged lightning, and winds swirled like vortexes of time itself. Shadows clawed at the edges of reality, screaming like every broken memory ever buried beneath the ranch. But Hannah didn't move. Her eyes filled with something new. Not fear, not anger, resolve. She closed her eyes and remembered her baby's cry in the night. The warmth of her husband's arms, now gone. The land, the blood, the duty she never knew she inherited. And from within her chest, something ancient woke. Light burst from her hands, raw, golden, and alive. Not magic, not science. Memory made will. The entity reeled back, screeching in 1,000 lost tongues. The rift's floor began to close, folding in on itself. Buildings collapsed in reverse, sucked back into oblivion. Sawyer grabbed Inariel, hauling her up. Time to go! Hannah turned to them. There's no way back unless I seal it. Sawyer's face twisted. Don't you dare! You know I have to, she said softly. I didn't come all this way to lose you! Tears streamed down her face, but her grip only tightened. And I didn't come this far to let it escape. Tell her. She paused, trembling. Tell my daughter I did this for her. For all of them. And then she ran, straight into the center of the rift, light streaming from her skin like fire. The entity howled, but her light consumed it. The world flashed, and everything vanished. Sawyer awoke on the ranch floor outside the sealed stone chamber. The sky above was gray, calm, quiet. Inariel was gone. So was the tunnel, just flat earth. A few scattered stones, the wind whispering like a lullaby. He sat up, broken. In his hand, a single strand of golden light lingered, warm, alive. 3 months later, the government returned, but found nothing. The chamber, the symbols, the tunnels, all gone, as if they'd never existed. But Sawyer still had the ranch. He kept it, rebuilt it, and every spring, when the wildflowers bloomed across the hills, he told stories to a little girl with her mother's eyes of the time the land almost tore open, and the woman who held it shut with nothing but her love and her will.